Hello students, today we will discuss about the topic interest on debentures. As you can see from the board, interest on debentures. So interest on debentures is calculated at fixed rate, okay, on its nominal value, and nominal value is otherwise known as your face value, okay. So interest on debenture is to be calculated at a fixed rate on its nominal value or face value. Now what do you mean by nominal value? The value of the debentures which would be given in the question, okay. So that value would be considered as what? That original value would be considered as your face value or nominal value. Generally क्या होता है, interest on debentures में we have to calculate the interest, and interest is given on the nominal value of debentures. For suppose 12% debentures rupees 1 lakh, that means the value of the face value of debenture is how much? Rupees 1 lakh, and we are required to calculate interest how much? 12% of rupees 1 lakh. That would be how much? That will be rupees 12,000. Okay. Now it is a charge against profit. Always remember that interest on debentures would be considered as a charge against profit. Charge against profit means what? That means company has to pay the interest on debentures irrespective of profit or loss of the company. In other words, we can say that interest on debentures is a charge against profit, which means that if the company incur losses, then also interest on debentures is to be paid mandatorily by the company. So that's the only reason debenture holders are known as the creditors of the company. Company को interest payment करना पड़ेगा irrespective of profit or loss. Okay. Next is your, now we can see the new term. This is your TDS. What do you mean by TDS? TDS means the tax deducted at source. Okay. So we can go through it. The company paying interest on debentures deducts income tax on interest payable at the prescribed rate of TDS, and the amount of tax deducted is deposited within the income tax authorities. कहने का मतलब है whatever the interest which is to be paid to the debenture holders, out of that interest company is liable to pay your TDS, and TDS means your tax deducted at source, which is payable only on interest on debentures which is to be calculated, and that amount of percentage of TDS would be given in the practical question at the prescribed rate of TDS, and whatever the TDS which has been deducted from the interest on debentures, that TDS would be payable to whom? That TDS would be payable to the income tax authority, and that payment would be payable in bank account. Okay. Now we can see the accounting entries in case of interest on debentures. First of all, when interest is due and tax is ignored. Tax is ignored का मतलब क्या होता है? When nothing has been said about TDS. क्वेश्चन में कुछ मेंशन नहीं किया है TDS के बारे में. Then what will be the journal entry? Journal entry would be interest on debentures account debited to debenture holders account. Okay. Interest on debentures यहाँ पे डेबिट क्यों हो रहा है? Because interest on debenture is the expense for the company. So being the nominal account, debit all expenses or losses. So interest on debenture account would be debited, and to whom it is payable? It is payable. The amount would be payable to the debenture holders. Okay. So that's the only reason debenture holders has been credited. So this is the entry for the interest on debentures due to the debenture holders. Next is your when interest is due and tax is deducted at source. That means क्वेश्चन में मेंशन किया हुआ है कि इंटरेस्ट इज ड्यू है, साथ में टीडीएस के बारे में दिया गया है. ठीक है. सो व्हाट विल बी द जर्नल एंट्री? जर्नल एंट्री वुड बी इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर्स अकाउंट डेबिटेड टू डिबेंचर होल्डर्स अकाउंट टू टीडीएस पेएबल अकाउंट. ठीक है. यहाँ पर सेम एंट्री रिपीट हो रहा है, साथ में टीडीएस पेबल अकाउंट भी आ जाएगा. सपोज फॉर एग्जांपल 1 lakh डिबेंचर इज देयर, ओके, एंड 12% योर इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर इज देयर. So you have to calculate your 12% of rupees 1 lakh. So how much will be the amount? Amount would be rupees 12,000. ठीक है, 1 lakh का 12%, how much it would be? It would be your 12,000. And suppose your TDS has been given 10%. So that means we are required to calculate TDS on the interest on debenture. 12,000 का 10% कितना आएगा TDS? 1200. ठीक है, so to TDS payable account, how much will be the amount? Amount would be rupees 1200. And what is the difference figure? Difference figure would be 12,000 minus 1200, that will be your 10,800. That will be payable to whom? That will be payable to the debenture holders. Okay, so this is the entry for interest due with TDS. Next is your when interest is paid. जब कंपनी इंटरेस्ट पे करेगा, to whom company is paying? Entry would be debenture holder account debited to bank account. That means debenture holder is the personal account, so debit the receiver. So debenture holder account would be debited whatever the amount of interest would be there to bank account. Narration being interest on debentures paid. Okay. Next, fourth bit, when TDS is deposited, remember out of this interest, this 1200 rupees which has been considered as TDS, that will be deposited to the income tax authority. So what will be the journal entry? In this case, TDS payable has been created. So in this case, TDS payable account would be debited. So entry would be TDS payable account debited to bank account. Narration being income tax paid to the government. Okay, so this is how you are required to pass the journal entry in case of interest on debentures. So one more entry is there, that is for transfer of interest on debentures. So what will be the journal entry for transfer of interest on debentures? Statement of profit and loss account debited to interest on debentures account. अभी तक हम क्या कर रहे थे? इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर अकाउंट हैज बीन डेबिटेड, सो नाउ वी हैव टू क्लोज द इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर. सो उसके लिए क्या करना पड़ेगा? वी हैव टू क्रेडिट द इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर्स अकाउंट एंड फ्रॉम वेयर वी हैव टू एडजस्ट, दैट इज योर स्टेटमेंट ऑफ प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट वुड बी डेबिटेड. ओके, सो नाउ लेट अस सॉल्व वन प्रैक्टिकल क्वेश्चन. As the question you can see from the board, we can read the question. Your Time Sports Limited issued 15,000 10% debentures of rupees 100 each, okay, on 1st April 2019, and the issue was fully subscribed. According to the terms of issue, interest on debentures is payable on half yearly basis. That means कंपनी इशू कर रहा है 15,000 10% डिबेंचर्स कितना रुपए के हिसाब से? 100 रुपए के हिसाब से. ठीक है, और टर्म्स कंडीशंस क्या है? डिबेंचर्स इंटरेस्ट इज पेबल ऑन हाफ ईयरली बेसिस. सो यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू पास द जर्नल एंट्री फॉर इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर्स फॉर द ईयर एंडेड 31st March 2020. So as we have read that interest on debentures is always calculated on face value of debenture. ठीक है, face value of debenture, that is your nominal value. So first we have to calculate the interest on debenture. So face value or nominal value of debentures would be how much? कितना debentures था? 15,000 debenture कितना रुपए के हिसाब से? 100 rupees के हिसाब से. That is your 15,000 into 100. So how much it would be? It would be your 15 lakhs. ठीक है, तो 15 lakhs के हिसाब से तुम्हारा फेस वैल्यू हो गया किसका? डिबेंचर्स का. नाउ व्हाट इज द रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट? इंटरेस्ट रेट इज गिवन हाउ मच? 10%. दैट मींस interest on debentures would be how much? Interest on debentures would be 10% of rupees 15 lakhs. 15 लाख का 10% कितना होगा? That is your rupees 1,50,000. Okay, but this is payable on half yearly basis. That means 2 times the company is likely to pay the interest. ठीक है, तो half yearly basis के हिसाब से पेमेंट होगा. That means 1,50,000 into 1/2. So how much company will pay after 6 months? Rupees 75,000. Okay, so now we are रिक्वायर्ड टू पास द जर्नल एंट्री। तो जर्नल एंट्री जो होगा सबसे पहले ड्यू का, सो व्हाट विल बी द ड्यू, व्हाट विल बी द ड्यू डेट, ड्यू डेट वुड बी योर 30th September। व्हाई, बिकॉज कंपनी हैड इशूड द डिबेंचर ऑन 1st April। 1st April से 6 महीना के कब होगा, 30th September 2019। ओके, सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल योर ड्यू एंट्री, ड्यू एंट्री क्या होगा, इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर्स अकाउंट, interest on debentures account would be debited, and how much would be the amount, amount would be 75,000 to debenture holder account। कितना इंटरेस्ट देना है, अमाउंट would be how much, amount would be 75,000, and what will be the narration, being interest on debentures ड्यू। ठीक है, ये ड्यू का एंट्री हो गया। ओके, नाउ सेकेंड, नाउ कंपनी को क्या करना पड़ेगा, कंपनी पहले ड्यू को एंट्री करेंगे, देन पेमेंट एंट्री, एंड इंटरेस्ट इज पेड हाफ ईयरली। ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट करना है किसको, डिबेंचर होल्डर को। एंट्री क्या बनेगा हमारा, डिबेंचर होल्डर अकाउंट डेबिटेड टू बैंक अकाउंट। तो एंट्री वुड बी डिबेंचर होल्डर अकाउंट, डिबेंचर होल्डर अकाउंट डेबिटेड टू बैंक अकाउंट, एंड हाउ मच विल बी द अमाउंट, अमाउंट वुड बी 75,000, अमाउंट वुड बी 75,000। ओके, so similarly after 6 months more company is liable to pay the interest on debenture, that is your on 31st March। So now again we are required to pass the entry after 6 months, that is your 31st March 2020। same entry would be there, 75,000 उनको पेमेंट करना है। एंट्री क्या बनेगा, इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर्स अकाउंट डेबिटेड टू डिबेंचर्स होल्डर अकाउंट, since it has been payable half yearly, how much will be the amount, amount would be your 75,000, narration being interest on debentures due। okay, now this is the due entry, now payment entry, same date 31st March 2020। entry क्या बनेगा, debenture holder account debited to bank, how much is the amount, amount is your 75,000, narration being interest on debentures paid। okay, so last entry is the transfer entry, as I passed the entry here, so transfer entry will be also on last date, so closing date is how much, 31st March 2020। so what will be the transfer entry, statement of profit and loss account debited to interest on debentures। हम कितना टोटल इंटरेस्ट कैलकुलेट किए थे, इंटरेस्ट इज योर ₹1,50,000। ठीक है, विच इज पेबल हाफ ईयरली, 75,000 plus 75,000, so total amount of interest on debenture is how much, 1,50,000। so what will be the entry, statement of profit and loss account debited how much, 1,50,000 to interest on debenture, how much, 1,50,000। what is the narration, narration is your being interest on debentures transferred। okay, so this is how we are likely to pass the journal entry in case of interest on debentures। one thing you remember, when interest is due, जब कभी भी कंपनी को पैसा देना है, इंटरेस्ट ऑन डिबेंचर्स बिकम्स ड्यू और अनपेड, दैट मीन्स इट इज नोन एज इंटरेस्ट अक्रूड और इंटरेस्ट आउटस्टैंडिंग। ओके, नाउ द क्वेश्चन कम्स वेयर इट विल बी शोन इन द बैलेंस शीट। बैलेंस शीट में कहां शो करेंगे हम, इंटरेस्ट अक्रूड, ड्यू और आउटस्टैंडिंग would be shown under the main heading। main heading कौन सा main heading आएगा, current liability। okay, and it will be shown under the sub heading, and sub heading would be what, other current liability। एक है main heading current liability और main heading current liability के अंदर में कहाँ आएगा, sub heading other current liabilities in the balance sheet। okay, so that's all for today, thank you।